talk about why we don't have high-speed rail in the United States. And the answer is, it's mostly all about history. Most of the rails in the United States are owned by freight train companies. And there's an agreement with Amtrak so that Amtrak can use those rails. The freight train companies, by law, are supposed to give Amtrak priority with regards to dispatching. The freight train companies usually just ignore this law. So that's one. And how did that come about? Amtrak came about in the 70s because rail companies were freight and passenger. They owned both, and they made money as freight companies, but they didn't make money as passenger trains. And in fact, so the passenger train side was sinking their businesses. So the United States basically bailed them out and said, okay, we're going to form Amtrak. We're going to run the passenger service throughout the United States, but we need the freight rails to be able to do it, and we'll take over all your passenger stuff. Freight companies agreed to it, and Amtrak was created. And part of that agreement is what I just said. Amtrak is supposed to get priority to run on the rails. So here's the other thing. Most of the tracks in the United States are Class 4 tracks. That means a speed limit of 80 miles per hour for passenger trains and a speed limit of 60 miles an hour for freight trains. And the freight companies are good with that. They can move their freight at 60 miles per hour. The thing is, if you want high-speed rail, like something actual high-speed rail is defined as over 125 miles per hour, you need to separate the grade crossings. All right, you can't have. It's bad enough as it is with the slower moving freight trains and slower moving passenger trains. The amount of accidents that happen at rail crossings. Okay, the reason we have thousands and thousands and thousands of rail crossings in the United States is because the rail lines were built, in most cases the rail lines were built long before the roads that are crossing them were built. So the rail lines existed. Everybody in the United States started using cars, and the federal government, the state government, and the smaller municipal governments all started building roads. They didn't take into account, in order to use high-speed rail, that the roads can't cross the tracks. Okay? So we have, throughout the United States, everywhere, the roads cross the tracks. And you can't have that when you're going 125 miles an hour. You just can't. It's crazy. And if you want to go even faster, like 200 miles an hour, you definitely can't have it because, if a train hits a motor vehicle at 200 miles an hour, the motor vehicle is going to be obliterated. That goes without saying. But the 200 mile an hour train is not going to be without damage. Okay, so it's just too dangerous, right? So these countries, and China is the perfect example, where everybody is always telling me, well, in China the speed of the trains is 200 miles an hour. Yeah, they've built their rail lines since the year 2000. So when they built them, they just built them over the existing roads. They either elevate it and put it over the road, or they put a tunnel and they put it under the road, right? So there is no issue with grade crossings. And then, to boot, with the really high-speed trains, they were all fenced off. So humans can't get on the tracks, animals, except for birds, can't get on the tracks, and there's no grade crossings, okay? All of that is almost close to impossible in the United States. So a lot of people, oh, well, why don't we have high-speed rail in the United States like it was lack of technology or lack of being able to do it. It's none of those things. Rail travel in the United States got kicked to the curb after World War II in favor of automobiles and airline travel. Okay? And the manufacturers of airplanes and the manufacturers of automobiles, were down with that. They were okay with that because they wanted to manufacture planes and automobiles. So whenever anybody tells me about high-speed trains in China, for me it's a false equivocation, because you need to compare the complete transportation system. You have to take into account the amount of automobiles, the amount of flying that goes on, and the trains. So when they say, oh, well, Amtrak's slow, it only goes 80 miles per hour, and the Chinese have 200-mile-an-hour trains, that's true. But you know what? The Chinese, the whole country, was still riding around on bicycles, while every family in the United States owned 2 cars. So because they caught up and they built some infrastructure for trains, it's just a false equivocation. It's not the same thing. And this is the thing about infrastructure also, and you can see this right now. I am sitting on a road that they're gonna widen. They're gonna rebuild it, right? But because they're widening the road and they're rebuilding it, there's pylons all over the place. There's barriers all over the place. The road's all ripped up or whatever. And eventually the other lane will get here, and then the road will be nice again. But this is going to go on. This has already gone on for a year. It's going to go on for another 2 or 3 years, right? So everybody's inconvenienced as they improve the infrastructure. So you know what? Creating brand new infrastructure is far easier than improving existing infrastructure, right? If you go to a place and you're going to build a road and there's nothing there but fields and trees or whatever, you don't have to inconvenience everybody who's already using a road to make that road. Okay, so when China goes and builds all these high-speed rails, that's great. And you know what? And here's the other thing. They have cheap Chinese labor to build all that infrastructure with. In the United States, it's expensive. All these guys, all these these people who are building this road right now that I'm on, that's not cheap. These guys don't make minimum wage. Well, some of them do. I guess some of the common laborers do. But most of them are skilled professionals. It's expensive to build roads and railroads and all of that. And it's way more expensive to do in the United States than it is to do in China. So, the answer is, it's just not, an easy, simple answer. It's complicated. It's rooted in history. It's rooted in infrastructure. It's rooted in lobbying and all these other things that go on in the United States. It's just not, oh, well, Amtrak should have just made high-speed rail. And you know what? Where Amtrak owns the rails, which is the Northeast Corridor and this small segment in Michigan, the trains do go fast because Amtrak owns the rails, they build the rails, they maintain the rails, and the rails are whatever class they need to be to support the high-speed rail. All right, so that's a little bit about why we don't have high-speed rail in the United States.